Hello to all of you, the Pioneer viewers. We continue to bring you the latest developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. In a moment, we will analyze the latest developments in the Russian-Ukrainian arena with a map. According to the latest reports, there are two main focal points of the conflict. One of them is the Donetsk and the other one is the Zaporizhia front line. The struggle between the two armies are concentrated in these regions. The situation is particularly critical on the Donetsk front line. We know that both armies are in an offensive positions. There are offensive of the Ukrainian army on the Zaporizhia front line, while there are offensive of the Russian army on the Donetsk front line. We have already shared with you the situation on the Zaporizhia. There is a tendency for Ukrainian troops to move behind the Russian positions. In this way, it was aimed to encircle the Russian troops. Let's examine the map report together, where we also evaluate these developments. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss the daily map reports and agenda reports prepared by the Pioneer team. You can also support me and my team by commenting on our videos and using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start if you're ready. The Pioneer reports. As is tradition, we start our report by analyzing the developments on the Zaporizhia front line. The most prominent area on the Zaporizhia front line was the Kopani region. As you know, Ukrainian forces were conducting offensive attempts to encircle Kopani. According to the latest report, Ukrainian troops are continuing their offensive in the vicinity of the Kopani. You can see the area on the map. This area is being heavily shelled by the Ukrainian artillery. In particular, the west and the north of region are being heavily shelled. No progress has been made yet. However, the intense artillery attacks in the region has softened the Russian positions considerably. This process seems to continue for a while. The intensive attacks of Ukrainian artillery units should at least open a breach in the Russian positions. If this breach is made, there may be an opportunity for Ukrainian infantry units to reach Kopani. On the other hand, Ukrainian troops are facing Russian attacks in the direction of Novoprokopivka. Russian troops are trying to advance in the direction of Novoprokopivka. We have already mentioned earlier, Russian troops launch an offensive to stop the Ukrainian advance in Novoprokopivka. As you know, the Russian army has made a rather large retreat here. In addition, the Ukrainian advance in the region took place unexpectedly. While Ukrainian troops were advancing in the direction of Robotny, they suddenly changed direction and entered Novoprokopivka. According to the latest reports, Russian troops launched an attack on Ukrainian positions. However, these attacks were inconclusive. After the clashes, the Russian troops retreated back to their positions. There were no heavy losses in Ukrainian positions during these attacks. We also see that there are attacks by Ukrainian troops in the Verbov direction. According to the latest reports, Ukrainian artillery units subjected the Russian positions in the Verbov direction to heavy shelling. It is also reported that Ukrainian infantry units made a small amount of progress during these attacks. Let us also mention the artillery attacks in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery struck Ukrainian targets in Novoandriivka, Novodanilovka, and Malaya Tokmakha. In turn, Ukrainian artillery struck Russian positions in Rivne, Slatka Balka, Ichenko, Novopokrovka, and Novofedoryovka. Now, I would like to continue our report by analyzing the latest developments in the Vuhledar sector of the Zaporizhia front line. As you know, the Ukrainian army has absolute control over the Stromirsk and Yarkhain area. Russian troops continue their attacks in order to remove the Ukrainian army's dominance in these regions. However, I have stated many times before that the Ukrainian army has built strong defense fortifications in this region. Thanks to these fortifications, Russian troops cannot advance. Although Russian troops want to advance with artillery support at many points, Ukrainian defense fortifications prevent Russian troops from advancing. Ukrainian troops have an intense pressure on the Priyotny region. In particular, Ukrainian artillery units are carrying out violent attacks from the east towards the Priyotny region. In this region, Russian positions have softened considerably. In the coming days, the Priyotny region may come under the control of the Ukrainian army. But of course, this is a process. It needs to be followed carefully. Let us mention the artillery attacks in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units hit Ukrainian positions in Zaporizhzhia and Luhansk. Ukrainian artillery targeted Russian positions in direction of Priodny, Donetsk, Novomyrsk, and Zaporizhzhia. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. As you know, this region have been very active in recent days, especially the destruction of a large number of Russian armored vehicles in this region attracts attention. We also stated in our previous reports this area known as Armored Cemetery. Since the beginning of the war, many Russian armored vehicles have been destroyed in this region. Not only armored vehicles, at the same time a large number of Russian unmanned aerial vehicles were destroyed and shot down by the defense forces of the Ukrainian army in this region. According to the latest reports, the Ukrainian armed forces are still in a defensive position. Russian troops are carrying out an intensive offensive, especially in the areas north of Avdiivka. A large number of Russian infantry are attacking in conjunction with Russian artillery and the Russian Air Force. However, progress is very limited. It is possible to express the progress of the Russian army in centimeters. On the other hand, the traditional offensive of the Russian troops in the direction of Marinka continues. During this offensive, we do not see any progress made by the Russian troops. Ukrainian defense forces repelled the attacks of Russian troops in the vicinity of the Marinka, Severnoi, and Stepnoi. Let us refer to the artillery attacks in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian positions in Novomykhailivka, Netailivka, Tunekkoi, Latochkin, and Berdichi. Ukrainian artillery units in turn worked under Russian forces in Stroy-Mikhailivka, Donetsk, Vuhledar, and Opitny. The Bakhmut front line was quite calm today, therefore we continue with the Luhansk front line. According to the latest reports, the Russian army continues offensive operations near Turskoy, Mykiivka, Novohorivka, Stepnaya, Novosilovka, and Sinyovka with the fire support provided by the Air Force. However, no results were obtained from these attacks. Russian artillery also shared Ukrainian positions in Belogorovka, Novskoye, Klishchovka, Petropavlovka, and Kupiansk. Ukrainian forces in the region have taken up a full defense positions. Therefore, Russian troops cannot make progress despite all the attacks. What do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian army will continue to advance on the Zaporizhzhia front line? What do you think about the activity on the Donetsk front line? Do you think the losses will affect the Russian army? Will the Ukrainian army be able to get an offensive opportunity here? And how do you assess the defensive fortifications of the Ukrainian army in the Vuhledar sector of the Zaporizhzhia front line? And can this defensive line be overcome? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.